Have you ever fished a spot and felt like you're throwing the wrong lures the whole time? I used to second guess myself constantly. Wrong depth, wrong profile, wrong everything. But once I figured out how to match the lure to the exact spot I was fishing, things changed fast. If you're new here, I'm Abs, a light tackle fishing enthusiast from Sydney, Australia. And over the last few years, I've put most of my focus into finesse fishing, and now I'm here to pass on what I've learned. If you saw my last video, we went through 10 main types of brim spots that I like to target when I'm out on the kayak, the boat, or even land-based. But knowing the spot is just one step. To consistently get results, you've got to match your lure to the structure, the season, and even the bait fish that are around. Now, this is where most people go wrong because they either stick with what looks good to them or what's worked in the previous trip. But I want to give you a system that helps you pick the right lure for the job every single time. Stick around if you're keen to level up your light tackle fishing game. Let's run through each spot and make sure you hang around till number 10 because it's one of the most underrated areas for brim and most people won't know how to fish it. Now, this is probably going to be one of the most versatile zones that I'm going to talk about. Bridges, pontoons, and marinas. They can hold fish at any level of the water column. If I had to pick one lure to throw in these locations, it would be the Outback Brimmerbaits Musk. The reason being is because it gets hit on the drop most of the time and it covers a lot of that water column, and even if it doesn't get hit on the drop, usually fish find it on the bottom and pick it up, so it's pretty versatile for this type of fishing. I'll also dead stick cranker crabs, and this even works with the brand new Daiwa Reflex 38S vibe. Minimal movement, just let them sit in the strike zone, let it flutter down, and if the Reflex vibe doesn't get hit on the drop, you can work it back like a vibe all the way up to the kayak, the boat, or land base, wherever you're fishing from. You can also fish soft plastics here. I tend to cycle through the Gulp Crabby, Daiwa Risky Critter, Daiwa Prawn, and in the warmer months, the Daiwa 295 Flick if I'm working the top half of the water column. Let's move on to number 2, drains and creek mouths. These are bait funnels. You usually find prawns or even small bait fish pushing through with the tide, so I lean on paddle tails or even grub style plastics. Think 2.5 to 3 inch paddle tails for bait fish, or a prawn imitation if you're seeing flicks on the surface from prawns. Keep the jig head light and work it with the current. Now we're going to move on to number 3, oyster racks. This is close quarters fishing, so I target these with crankbaits, work tight and parallel to the racks. The closer the better. When the fish aren't reacting to the crankbaits, I tend to fish it a little bit slower. I'll go for something like a soft plastic, maybe the Gulp Crabby or the Daiwa Risky Critter. The reason being is because they're a creature bait imitation, or I'll even probably dead stick a cranker crab right in between the rails, and it tends to get the bite most of the time. Some people even tend to go bigger size reels and heavier rated rods, obviously spooled on with some heavier line on the reels, and you get that extra cranking power as well. You lock your drag, pump the fish before it gets any sort of momentum to bust you off. Let's move on to number 4. On the flats, it's all about subtlety and long casts. I use lighter jig heads, sometimes even hidden weight systems, the Gulp Prawn, Daiwa Flick 295, Pro Lure Clone Prawn, and even the Hurricane Sprat or something with that type of profile will get the job done. For crankbaits, I tend to go with a Daiwa in-feet rolling crank 95% of the time in the brown Suji color. I love that color. It works so well for me. A lot of the times I'll just throw that lure out on the flats and it'll do all the damage. But sometimes when I'm fishing a little bit shallower, that lure dives a bit too deep, even the shallow diver. So I tend to go with the Pro Lure SX48 in the watermelon color. And a lot of people tend to tell me, oh, use the black, but I've used the black a few times and I haven't had no luck on it at all. If you use black crankbaits, please let me know down in the comments below and let me know why it's not working for me. And if the surface bite's on, especially on low light or calm days, I'll throw the slippery dog or bent minnows. Keep in mind that it's shallow water and a lot of the times it's very clear as well. So if you're on a kayak, it might be better to stay seated, especially when the sun is out and you're casting a shadow. Lighter fluorocarbon leader works in the exact same way. If you're using thicker line, it casts a shadow and can potentially scare the fish. I've found 4 pound to be the sweet spot. Well, that's my personal opinion, but some people even go down to 3 pound or even 2 pounds straight through fluorocarbon. Before I move on to number 5, I'm keen to hear which lure is your all-rounder, something you can rely on no matter where you fish. Let me know down in the comments below. Alright, number 5, we're talking about mangroves. In these zones, I like to use weedless soft plastics like the EcoGear Brim Prawn or even the Daiwa Flick 295 with a very light jig head. I cast them right in there amongst the roots of the mangroves and I work them out very quickly and then I just kill it. And a lot of the times you'll get the brim come out and follow. This technique is called the rip and burn. Surface lures also work amazing here. The reason being is because you don't have to worry about snagging on the bottom. That's number one. And number two is you can work them a lot slower than what you would work those soft plastics. And sometimes that could be the reason why you get more attention from the fish. Number 6, rocky edges. This is classic ambush country. Dragging a cranker crab or a prawn style soft plastic down the rock walls works great. I also bounce paddle tails or even flick baits in the summertime. The Daiwa Spike 44 is great when you want to trigger reaction strikes. Let them hit the structure, it's all a part of the game. Once it bounces off those rocks, a lot of the time the brim cannot resist. Number 7, the wash. Fish here are feeding on whatever gets bashed around in that white water. I throw paddle tails and heavier jig heads or even crankbaits like the Spike 44 through that surging water. Just be ready because the hits can come out of absolutely nowhere and you need to think fast sometimes and turn their heads quickly because most of the time some of the most gnarliest structure that you'll come across. Number 8, drop-offs. Blades come into their own here. The new Daiwa blades have been working amazing for me. If you check out my last couple of videos, you'll see them there. But you've also got the EcoGear VX range. You want to choose the weight based on the depth. So if I'm fishing between say 2 meters and 4 meters, I'll go with the 3.5 model. And if I'm fishing anywhere between 4 and 7, or sometimes you can even get away with 8 meters, then I'll go with the 5 gram. And anything heavier, or if you've got more current running, then obviously you've just got to base your weight on the depth that you're fishing. You've got to let the lure sink down to the bottom, watch for that slack line, make sure it's not sinking too quick either. And once it does hit the bottom, just very short lifts, very subtle, just to get that lure working, and the brim tend to go nuts over it. Paddle tails or grub tails on heavier jig heads also work well here when you want something a little bit more natural. When you're working these spots in winter, you want to be as subtle as possible and work the lures very slowly, as slow as you possibly can. And it's also very important to use scent. Number 9, boat hulls. Massively underrated, especially in summer when the fish are holding directly underneath the boat for shade. I crank parallel using the Daiwa rolling crank, and a lot of the times I'll even cast across the other side of the back of the boat and work it diagonally directly underneath the boat. And some tournament anglers even use a technique where they tune the eye of the lure right above the bib, where they bend it either to the left or to the right, and it obviously makes the lure swim either more to the left or more to the right, which gives you the advantage of having your lure swim right underneath the boat, even if you're casting parallel to the hull. So I also mix in soft plastics like the Bait Junkie prawn or the Daiwa Risky Critter or even the Gulp Crabby. And when it's cold, I like to work the lures all the way down to the bottom, or even the mooring blocks on the front. It's the same concept with the cranker crabs or the mas. They can work really well in these spots and can often attract those larger fish. Before we hit number 10, if you found any value in this so far, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps more than you think and it keeps this content coming. Now here's one that most people sleep on: cockle beds. This is a crunch zone, hard bottom, noisy structure and loads of food. I fish blades and vibes here, the Daiwa blade or the EcoGear VX blade, just like I mentioned earlier, where you can use any blade or vibe of your choice. Just stick them along the bottom using short hops or even a slow roll and wait for that sharp tap. It's not always the most obvious spot, but once you learn how to fish it right, it's proven to produce some of the most solid fish, and all that food they've got access to, you'll think, why wouldn't they come there and eat? Once I started matching my lure choice to the actual spot and not just what I felt like throwing, everything changed. More consistency, more confidence, and more fish. And if you missed the first video where I broke down all 10 of these spots that I mentioned in this video, I've linked it right up the top here. Give it a click, give it a watch, let me know what you think, and I'll see you all there.